This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Franny's Pharmacy.
Now more than ever, it's important that our society focuses more on our mental and physical health. At Franny's Pharmacy, the team is committed to their community's need of being happy, healthy, and stress-free. Come learn how Franny's Pharmacy can assist you in a clean, professional environment with their expert bud tenders that are excited to educate you about the benefits of their lab-tested, DEA-certified CBD products. Franny's Pharmacy also offers wholesale and franchise opportunities. Visit their website at frannysPharmacy.com, and that's pharmacy with an F, and use the promo code CannaConnect10 for an exclusive Cannabinoid Connect discount. Again, that's Franny's Pharmacy with an F.com and use the promo code CannaConnect10 for an exclusive Cannabinoid Connect discount. Franny's Pharmacy, putting the farm back into pharmacy. Jason, what's going on, man?
Hey, Kevin, thanks for having me. I'm at the end of a long day, and this has been the number one thing on my calendar, so I'm excited to talk to you, man.
Hey, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate my guests being flexible and recording at late hour, in the evening, because I do have my full-time job. But yeah, I appreciate the flexibility, and for those listening or watching, I think we need to bring this up. Before we started recording, we were talking about that. We realized we're both Bucknell alum. Shout out to Bucknell University out of Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, man. How cool is that? At the same time, too.
Yeah, I think I'm 2 years older than you, but it's been crazy, and I've raised a lot of money for my cannabis companies through Bucknell grads. I got started my first company. I went and pitched Pete Cadens and Anthony Giordano, who Pete was the former CFO of Green Thumb Industries, and Anthony is the current CFO of Green Thumb, and both Bucknell grads who I met after or during my time playing basketball there. And it's funny, I went to pitch them on my first company, and I went, and they were like, "Dude, you are out of your mind. No, I'm not investing in this." Anyway, I sold it a year later, and when I came back to them and told them that I sold it, they're like, "Okay, man, I can mess with you." And we became friends, and they've been some of my biggest customers ever since and biggest supporters. So also Josh Ginsburg, former Bucknell grad, he started Native Roots. So I don't know, man. I know they're smoking a lot of weed at Sig Chi where you were, and all the frats that I was rolling by. So I think we got a good education, and it seems to have translated well to the cannabis industry.
I agree. No, absolutely. And also, I'll mention Doug Gordon at a Leaf Link. I had him on the podcast. He's also a Bucknell alum. But yeah, we were definitely smoking it up at Bucknell. You probably not so much during your basketball season, right? Because you were an athlete.
I got piss test probably in my 4 years, probably 10 times. And it was no joke. So no, I did not smoke weed at Bucknell. But I have made up for it ever since, and that's going very well.
Well, I haven't stopped since I retired from wrestling at Bucknell. That was kind of my start into the cannabis space. So yeah, I'm right there with you, man. But I learned also, aside from the Bucknell background, you also got your foot before even the startup that you mentioned. I believe, was it in the food and beverage, specifically the liquor space?
Yeah.
So yeah, talk to us a little about that and kind of what led you to now currently being CEO of Petalfast.
Yeah, Petalfast is like a culmination of all my fuck ups over the last 10 years, 15 years. And I've cultivated that into a business that, I don't think we've been around long enough for me to mess it up just yet. But yeah, I grew up around wine and liquor. Well, that sounds bad. I grew up around wine and liquor distribution. And my father worked for a distributor in New Jersey. He just retired after 44 years. So I grew up around that business called Fedway Associates, is the largest alcohol beverage distributor in New Jersey. So selling everything from Grey Goose to Jack Daniels to, a million different wines. And so I grew up around, bars and on premise and off premise, and how do you build brands? And seeing all these brands come through, and some of them make it, some of them don't make it. That was kind of the backbone of me. So after school, I worked there for a little while and just understood it. But like all 25-year-old egotistic maniacs, there it's like, I shouldn't be working for my dad. I should be doing my own thing. I'm better than this. And the best thing that I ever did was I took an opportunity to build a company with a partner of mine, and I started a beef jerky company. So I understood the wine and spirits dynamics and how do you bring a brand to market. But I started a beef jerky company. It was called Lawless Jerky, and we ended up selling the business towards the end. But in between starting it and selling it, like, that sounds nice. I messed it up every which way you possibly could mess it up. And I think as an entrepreneur, like, that's the only way you learn. There's no books on
Totally.
this.
Yeah.
You can read whatever you want. You can listen to Gary Vee. You can do all this. But if you want to do it, there's only one way, and it's to actually get in there and do it. So,
And it's inevitable. Failure is inevitable in the process of entrepreneurship. So I know that, while you're kind of half joking about you messed this up and this and that, I mean, it's your first company, right? So like you mentioned, you're going to take those learnings and apply them in the future.
yeah, and for what we'll get into with Petalfast and cannabis, actually understanding route to market for alcohol beverage, and then also understanding it for food and beverage, like the natural food space. It's really interesting because there are a lot of principles that Petalfast uses and cannabis uses that are taken from both industries. If you think you're going to overlay the cannabis or the alcohol beverage model in the cannabis, you're going to run into a lot of hurdles. If you think you're going to perfectly overlay the natural food model, you're going to run into hurdles. So Petalfast is a culmination of those two experiences. So after we were done with the food business, our CFO was out of Santa Monica, and this is me, East Coast, and like never been a pot smoker my whole life, just because, like, basketball and everything. And I didn't know anything about weed, and I certainly didn't know anything about gas. But my partner, or my CFO at the time, he's like, dude, you should take a look at this opportunity. My friend has a contract for butane gas. And I'm like, okay, butane, what is that? And what is, what's going on in cannabis? So I went out to Colorado for about 3 months. I studied the industry. I figured out what butane was. And butane, especially back then, now there's a solventless revolution. There's, CO2. But when cannabis is turned into oil, like, the original method was butane.
Right.
And we were the first national distributor, hazmat compliant, fully legal, of industrial size butane canisters. And we grew that business tremendously. Again,
Jason, before you move on to that, just real quick, did you consume for the first time when you went to Colorado?
hell yeah, dude, I ran off a plane. I took some Chiba Chews, and my boy, who was like my stoner friend, he's like, dude, let's go get some of these Chiba Chews. Because in Philly, you know how it is. It's like Bucknell. It's like you get the worst weed ever. So he's like, yo, I want to try these Chiba Chews. Meanwhile, it's like 50 milligrams at the time, like 7 years ago. So I get on a plane. I literally ran off the plane because I did the usual first time edible guy, right?
Yep.
The after hour move, like, oh, this isn't kicking in. Let me take another one.
So 250s, so 100 total.
Oh, I was a mess. A
Whoa.
mess. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sitting on this plane. This is back when I was broke as hell. I'm sitting middle seat Frontier on my way back from Colorado. And like, that's enough to give you anxiety as it is. But I'm sitting middle seat in between two guys that I'm just like, oh my God. And everything starts caving in, and the anxiety levels just tick up big time. So I'm like, you know what? I'm good.
Yep.
I ran off the plane. And funny story, my boy who I came with, he's in the back of the plane. We weren't even sitting next to each other. So he's in the back of the plane, sitting there, and I look back and he's passed out. Okay. So he doesn't know that I ran off the plane, and I'm in the West End curled up like a little child. And I'm like, forget it. I'll just fly back tomorrow or something.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he gets up in the middle of the flight, and he comes to me, up to my seat, And he's like, holy shit, this guy's not even here right now. What is going on?
Did he jump off the plane?
He didn't jump off the plane, but he was asking around, like, what happened to this guy? They're like, this guy just ran off the plane. So anyway, he finally gets to Philly and calls me. And yeah, so that was my first time like weed experience. Total amateur hour. Probably shouldn't be saying it on this because I'll lose.
Hey, I'll give you a story really quick so that you don't feel as bad. Okay. So I have a similar story. I went to Amsterdam in 2015 and I didn't realize that they have smart shops there. Have you ever heard of a smart shop?
I have no idea what that is.
There's psilocybin shops that like they sell like a menu of just different mushrooms that you could buy. You got your face melters that are 5s, or you got your ones that are like body highs. So anyway, I buy the middle, have a great night, and I have some left over in my bag at the airport when I'm flying back to London. So I'm like, amateur hour, like just like you're saying, I'm like, you know what? I had a great experience. I'll just take these. I've taken them, and since high school, I can deal with it. I take the psilocybin 45 minutes before my flight takes off. I'm boarded on it, and thankfully, the flight is only an hour and 45 minutes. I had to fight through it. Like the person next to me was probably like, what is going on with this guy? Cause I was like holding my head. I was, you want to walk around and get out. Like, so I must've looked like a complete lunatic, but I made it the 145. We landed, and then I had to still find like a place to stay, like an Airbnb or a hotel. So it was just a huge mess. This is what I tell everybody is that if it would have been over 2 hours, I would have taken that plane, I would have grounded it, and you would have seen me on the nightly news. Like it would have been a crazy, because it's too intense, to your point.
I would have never made it through my flight. I think we should start a separate podcast and just invite people on and first time gummy experience.
We should. There's so many of them. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead. Continue your story.
Yeah,
so you talked about butane, and you guys were the
first.
first.
Anyway, we started a company called Summit Innovations, and
yeah.
It was a home run, and not just we sold the company in 1 year to Kushko Holdings, and then the whole team. That changed my life to a degree, and it was a great experience. And like it was after 1 year, so I didn't even have enough time to like mess it up. But it was just right place, right time, and in cannabis, timing is everything. Right. So that also taught me a lot, right? I was in all the labs in the country. I understand the oil side of things and vape and gummies, but I'm a go-to-market strategy guy. I'm a distribution guy. I'm a brand builder. And so when I'm in all these stores, I'm like, yo, or when I'm in the labs, I'm like, how do you take this product to market? What's your sales team like? What's your distributor like? And then I was always thinking like long term, I'm going to build something like that fast. So anyway,
because you knew that from food and beverage, you had seen that kind of model, right? And you're just kind of filling in the gaps and the missing links.
I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure it out. And, then Kushko Holdings, which is now Green Lane, was a great experience for me and kind of put me on the map, so to speak. Being a public company, we were ancillary. We were one of the largest companies in the country at the time, closing in on $1 billion market cap back. This is back 6 years ago. We were like the picks and shovels like dream play, right? Mm-hmm. And like all things, unbelievable learning experience. So we raised over $100 million when I was there. So, and I was the president of the company, so certainly led a lot of these things along with the CEO Nick, who also played hoops. So we got along very well, so close friends. But raising that type of money, I remember I flew to an investment banking meeting, and I didn't want to tell everybody okay, I really don't know how this works. I'm just going to have to teach myself, and understanding how a public offering works, understanding how the funds arrive, understanding what a shelf is, all the regulations, all the legal that goes into it. It was an unbelievable learning experience. And if you want to get really good at business, run a public company, because there's no hiding. You can't bullshit anybody. You got analysts all over you, and you're running around naked. Like, they're going to see everything, no matter if you're ready or not. And, we had a lot of ups, we had a lot of downs. We grew the business like crazy. We had to cut the business down when the vape crisis hit. And we were the largest seller of vaporizers in the country to the cannabis industry. and vape crisis hits, and it's like, poof, all right, let's cut everything and figure this thing out. So that was a great experience. And even more importantly, we dealt with everybody from Canopy Growth to Aurora to GTI to Cresco to Grassroots, that is now Cureleaf, to True Leaf, to the small guy, to the little guys in Colorado, the little guys in Oregon, all the players in California. So gave me a really good understanding of all the different states, all the different players in the states, and kind of like the gas story. When I'm going in there and I'm talking about packaging or vape, I'm really going in there to understand how are you taking your brand to market.
Right.
And just selling packaging and vape wasn't really exciting for me. I mean, if you're going to pay me what they did, like, I'm in, I'll sell whatever. But I always had this in my mind. And after my earnout was done and, things were kind of settling in with the new market conditions, I wanted to go and start Petalfast. And this idea was born. And I left, 2.5 years ago. And after about 3 months of work, and I'll get into the whole kind of what Petalfast is in the story, Petalfast was born, and we're the leading platform to bring cannabis brands to market in California at this point.
Yeah, well, that's actually a great segue, because I mean, I want to talk about, in your perspective, being the CEO of Petalfast, what you view the current and major, like the biggest problem or the problem at heart of the U.S. cannabis market is, and how can we solve it? And is Petalfast, looking to solve that issue?
Yeah. Let's talk about the California market and the overall market, because
Okay.
California, where we play, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of problems. And I'll tell you that I don't believe there are as many problems Midwest and East Coast yet. Okay, it's much more limited license. You have access. They just need to grow more weed, have more retail stores, and it's all good in but it will evolve into a California landscape, whether that takes 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Competition is coming. And in California, the number one problem is just oversupply. I mean, flat out, everything starts from oversupply, right? When there is too much product, prices start to fall dramatically. Businesses' margins start to get decreased dramatically. There's more and more competition, right? And one of the biggest challenges is all of those dynamics are happening while people have balance sheets that are not safe, right? They're not secure. I mean, they're running businesses without the proper funding. We're growing ourselves out of our own funds, right, with expansion. Or there's public companies that shouldn't be public. I mean, a lot of companies were forced to go public to get some capital, but they should not be public, and they cannot handle the legal challenges of running a public company, the operational challenges, the compliance challenges, and then everybody is stretched too thin. One of the topics I definitely want to talk about is vertical integration. I think vertical integration is the death of cannabis. I'm against it. I believe all it does is coddle license holders to allow them to operate in a more regulated marketplace. But if you are the grower, if you are the extractor, if you are the distributor, if you are the retailer, if you are the brand builder, and you do all of that in a vertical integrated marketplace, you're going to be okay at all those things. You're not going to have the focus or the capital to focus on being really, really good, right? And what Petalfast does is we focus on one thing. We sell weed, and we do it better than anybody, right? And that's all our focus is. And what you're starting to see in California is vertical integration break down. And you're starting to see the best extractors win, not the largest, not the one with the most money, the best. The best growers win, the best retailers win, right? So vertical integration, I think, was a necessity to start cannabis and how regulators got it going. But now, as more and more competition comes into play, it's starting to break down. And being the largest doesn't mean you're the best, right? And I like to partner with people, and we like to think being the most focused is the way to go.
The cannabis industry is so high. I mean, it's a highly capitalized industry, right? It's a lot of money to enter this game and to play in this space. And I get what you're saying about how vertical integration in some ways will be a detriment because it'll eliminate, other competition from coming in, probably eliminate the smaller guys, the mom and pops and the craft cultivators. But how do you stop vertical integration? How is it breaking down, and how will it break down if there is eventual federal legalization?
So just to be clear, vertical integration to me is when you own everything from seed
Right.
to the sale of the product at a retail store.
Right.
Okay. And certain people own more components than others, but full vertical integration would be you grow the product, you brand the product, you distribute the product, you sell the product in your own retail store. Okay. Florida, for example, is fully vertical. Okay. Pennsylvania, I believe, is fully vertical. However, California, you can be one of those pieces, you can be all of those pieces, but ultimately what happens and why I believe it breaks down is because, yeah, it does cost a lot of money to get into the space, right? To get a license. However, when you start to scale things and when you start to look at what it takes to grow weed at scale, what it takes to distribute cannabis at scale, what it takes to be a larger and larger retail, it starts to stretch your money, right? All of these things cost a lot of money. And the bigger you get, the more stretched you get, right? The more risk then you have on your business, okay? So what we're seeing in California is people go, I got to cut this. I don't have enough money. There's not access to money. Right now, it's hard as shit to raise capital in cannabis, right? Between the public market scene, the macroeconomic scene, the cannabis scene, with it just being really challenging, it's very hard to raise money. So we're seeing all of these people get extremely stretched trying to do all the different verticals. And now they're saying, you know what? I just can't do them all.
Is the high taxation rate in California like a part of that also? And then you talked about hyper competition. So like the illicit market, I would imagine also is a big competitor for the legal market as well, right?
It's a huge competitor. Let me explain. California got cannabis legalized, Prop 64, but the way that they did it was that they allowed the municipality or the city to opt in. Okay. You're not forced to opt in. So what has happened is there's like 20,000 liquor stores in the state of California. There's 800 retail stores. Okay. California is massive. 800 retailers sprinkled throughout California. Like, you might as well not even be there. So I live in Laguna Beach. The closest dispensary to me is 40 minutes away.
Whoa.
Okay. 40 minutes away. Orange County has more people in it than any other county in California. And there's only one city, soon to be two, that have retail stores. Okay. So if you are in Laguna Beach or you're in whatever other city that's not close to Santa Ana, and you have an option, you can text your boy, who'll be there in 10 minutes with cheaper product and just as good product.
Right.
Or you can drive 40 minutes, pay for a nice $7 a gallon gas on your way there to get your weed, right? So yeah, I'm in the space, I'm around Santa Ana all the time, or I get samples all the time, but the average person is not going to drive there unless they're there, right? So they are choosing the cheaper way and the more accessible way. I don't know anybody who's like, yeah, I don't want to buy legal weed. They're like, I can't buy legal weed.
Right.
Because it's not easily available. When I can look like 4 different ways on the street and probably hit a liquor store within 3 blocks in any direction. That's what we need for cannabis. Colorado, get this. Colorado has 300 plus dispensaries in Denver.
Yeah, I was just there. Every single place we went. I mean, they have so many that I tweeted like, "What's the best place to go?" And I got so many different options. You're right.
No problems there.
Yeah.
With this, because it's highly accessible. In California, it is not. However, I will give Gavin Newsom some credit. They are changing things. There is a lot of new tax benefits. So if you do opt in, and obviously right now, the economic times that we're dealing with, it is very advantageous to opt in right now because you're going to get other benefits from the state of California if you opt in. So they're trying to incentivize city to opt in. because they know that's a big problem. If they can fix that problem, I do believe the black market will go away, because I truly don't think anybody's like, I want to buy from the black market.
Right. Right.
But if it's easy, you're going to do it.
It's convenient. Yeah, yeah. And it goes back to your point. I mean, that's great. The timing, going back to your point on like cannabis is all about timing. And like the fact that like, while it's unfortunate, the economic turmoil that we're feeling globally, like it's an opportunity for cannabis, right? And these municipalities to opt in. And that provision seems like the biggest detriment to a state that's going legal, right? Like I remember New Mexico was debating whether or not they wanted to allow local municipalities to opt in or opt out of the cannabis program, and they didn't allow them because of what was happening in California. So it's a lesson that I think states are learning and applying.
Yeah, no, it's we live and we learn, man.
That's
And I
right.
think we'll get it right. And they are making some changes, and they're bringing down some taxes. But there's a lot of people right now that can't raise money. And when you look at your P&L, like, unfortunately, there's also not a lot of businesses making money in cannabis. So if you can't raise money and you're not making money, that's typically not a good thing.
You're dead in the water. Yeah.
It's not going to end very well.
No, not at all. Well, let's move on, Jason. I want to talk to you. You mentioned earlier, you gave us the background of Petalfast origin story. Y'all are a outsourced sales and marketing agency in California. Let's talk about brand building and what you've seen when it comes to brand building versus new versus legacy markets. Like, California, for example, has legacy brands, right? But in the Northeast, we're seeing new brands emerge. So talk to us about, how those differ and what are some of the opportunities and challenges that they face on each side.
I will tell you that California has both authentic, or they have legacy brands, they have new brands, they have a gazillion brands. Okay. There are literally 3 to 5 new brands that come through our website unsolicited a day looking for help. Brands are plentiful. The difference between the East Coast and West Coast is just the authenticity of that operator, that market, that brand that's been around. Like cannabis and consumers of cannabis, like I always classify the number one consumer is the stoner, right? The stoner in California, they've been buying these brands for 10 plus years.
Right.
They know them, they seek them out. And if they move into the legal market, they buy them in the legal market. So there's a certain authenticity that you just cannot replicate when starting a brand right now. So now, with that said, the legacy brands then have to adapt to all the regulation and challenges and all the things that are going on in California. This is not like they're used to. But there has been some tremendous brands that have gone from the historical legacy market into the legal market today. 710 Labs is probably my favorite brand from just a brand perspective. These guys do the scarcity tactics. They have limited drops. They do the collabs. They do it all properly to build buzz. And the beauty of it is they're going after the consumer that spends the most. In California, as much as I grew up in alcohol beverage, I grew up in natural food. Everybody wants to win the soccer mom because the soccer mom typically spends the most, right? That is the most prized consumer out there. I'm sorry to break it to you, but the soccer mom is not going into dispensaries in California. And if you're building a brand towards that consumer, right, not going to happen. We have an employee here. Her name's Gina, and I always use her in this example. The stoner, they go through 3 cartridges a week, maybe more, right?
Yeah.
She's the typical consumer that normal CPG would want to go after. She buys one every 6 months.
Right.
Right. That's not going to get the job done for somebody that's trying to get a consumer to run their business. So in California, I think legacy is a little bit more important to the stoner. There's also a deep culture here, right? If I brought some beverages to my boys' house, they would be like, bro, like, what are you doing? We got the flower.
We got the real stuff.
There's a
Yeah,
culture
yeah.
of smoking flower. There is a culture of dabbing here. When I go back to Philly, if I brought, a 6 pack of cannabis beverages, I would be the coolest guy in the room, because it would just be like, we have access. It's weed. We're like, the culture is different there. So I think the East Coast is going to have more success. Obviously, it's not as competitive as California, but I think Midwest and East Coast will have more success tapping into that consumer, because everything is new, right?
Mhm.
Beverages is new, flower is new, dabbing is new. So we're seeing more success with that on the East Coast.
Yeah, just to add on to that, what's all interesting to me is, like, to your point, in the Northeast, it's new to them. So they're just excited to have a THC infused product, right? But I would imagine that on the brand side, in the product development process, they really need to think about, okay, well, should we innovate this product for the Northeast when they may not even understand, like, what we're doing here? Like, what I'm talking about is, like, infusing joints, for instance, or doing different product innovations that maybe the California market would understand, but maybe not the Northeast.
Yeah, we also see trends go from west to east. So um, you said about infused products. When I started this pedal fast, infused joints was about 20% of the market. Today it's about 50 in California. That trend we're now starting to see happen a year or two later in Illinois, in Massachusetts, right? So we're also able to see California trends, and they go across the country. But it goes back to that supply and demand. Um, in California, there's no shortage of weed. Okay, nobody needs more weed here in California. So we there's a million brands on the shelf, and it's very competitive. Consumers can pick, they can choose, they can pick whatever they want. In Philly, my boys are just happy that there's weed on a shelf. It could say shit in a bag. It is better than what they were used to. They are pumped about it. But we're starting to see those trends change, right? Now they're like, ooh, I'm not going to buy that anymore. Now there's brands coming. As soon as brands start to become more plentiful, that's when Pedal Fast comes, right? Then brand wars start. Then you have to build real consumer affinity. That's what we do with our sales and marketing teams.
That's a perfect segue, because the next question I was going to ask is, how is Petalfast transforming route to market in cannabis?
Yeah. Um, our competition is basically the full service distributor. Okay. So the person that is doing the trucking, the logistics, the technology, the storing of the product, the shipping of the product, the sales, and the brand ambassador work. And um, going back to what I said about, like, being really focused, we took a model out of the food industry, but we apply wine and spirits principles. And what I mean by that is, we partner with a logistical and warehousing provider and the trucking provider. Their company is called Cannabis. They're the largest logistical warehousing distributor in the state, but they don't do any sales for you. Okay. We have fully integrated and built out our platform alongside of them. So they focus on what they're good at: tech, distribution. We focus on the front of the house activity: customer service, brand building, sales, new stores. And then we help you with your sell through. So we have brand ambassadors. We have a full service, basically a modeling agency that if you want to go and do demos in MedMen, like, we're going to execute on that. So really, as a brand now, you're able to leverage our organization, which in California is 18 salespeople. We have a brand management organization that is some of the most talented people in the state, is going to help you with your brand strategy, your brand positioning, and make sure that you actually have a clear path to differentiating yourself. And then we have a field and trade organization made up of 13 territory field managers. They're working on merchandising, right? If we can't see the product on the shelf, we're probably not going to buy it. We're working on training the bud tenders, because I guarantee you, even me, I'm around this every single second of the day, and I'm still asking the bud tender what I should buy when I go in there. So training the bud tenders and not only training them, incentivizing them, right?
Mhm.
Throw samples at them, get some t-shirts in them, make them a fan. And
That's
then
so
doing
important. The experience is so important in the dispensary. I firsthand, I've been to Colorado recently, New Mexico, and the way you're treated in those dispensaries and the education you get is so important. I know I cut you off,
it's no
but
different than a bartender. I mean, the
yeah,
bartender pours you Tito's because Tito's takes the best care of them,
right.
right? It's no different than any other industry. We really pride ourselves on servicing that bud tender. And then we also have 65, 67 brand ambassadors that are straight kind of demos. Like if you go into a bar and the Captain Morgan girl or guy are there giving you a shot, right? That's basic demo or modeling activity, entry level. We have that for cannabis. And our field team manages that. So we have a big organization for the state of California, and now we're going to be you're the first that I'm breaking into, but we'll be going across the country. It looks like Michigan and Massachusetts are two states on our plate that we look to enter before the end of the year.
Nice. Congratulations on that. Just one quick question on the promo models that you mentioned that are kind of like, the example of Captain Morgan being in a liquor store and that model serving those. What product formulations are they handing out? Is it like flour? Is it edibles? All the
So
above?
we're talking about
Merchandise?
usually you're talking about the brand story, right? And you're showcasing like what the brand is about.
Got you.
Whatever their point of difference may be. And then a lot of products, there's non-medicated. You can't give out medicated product.
That's why I asked. I was curious. Yeah, I was like, well, okay.
If you get our peanut butter cup brand is called Emerald Sky. It's like the worst thing in the world because we have non-medicated peanut butter cups in our office all day long, and it's just awful. But you're doing non-medicated stuff with flour. It's not as big of a thing. You're really talking about the brand because you can't get non-medicated flour. But the beauty is when you're there for 3 hours, you're also building relationships with the bud tenders and you're steering people in the way of your brand. So
Right.
it's something you kind of have to do, and we're able to do it at scale.
No, yep, that makes sense. Well, what are some specific interesting client projects or initiatives that Petalfast is engaged with right now that you can talk about?
So Pilot, we have a program called Pilot. Crystal McLean on our team runs the program. She's been at Red Bull for, I think, 13 years, and then she's been in cannabis for 5 years, and she's really, really knowledgeable. And she has executed on a business unit of ours called Pilot. And what Pilot is my biggest takeaway from the first year of Petalfast was that most brands are actually not ready to grow. They're still trying to prove out their concept. And there is a whole different strategy if you're looking for proof of concept versus like you're ready to grow, right?
Right.
So most of these brands just wanted access. They didn't need our whole kind of machine. They just wanted the access to make sure that their price point was right, their packaging was right, like they're on the right track, right? And if you're starting a brand in alcohol beverage or you're starting a brand in food, right, in natural food, I got a good feeling you're going to talk to retailers before you go and launch that thing, right?
Right.
In cannabis, to get a meeting for 30 minutes with a buyer, it's nearly impossible. Like, dude, weed is sold. It's hilarious. It's like 6 emojis, a THC percentage, and then like 4 fire emojis, and you're like, you want some?
And it all happens within a Facebook group.
Within Instagram or a text message, you just got a $10,000 order.
Right.
So that's very challenging because you want, as a founder, you want to sit down with a buyer and connect, man.
Right.
You want to tell their story. You want to make them laugh, cry. You want to connect with them in some sort of way. I mean, let's be real serious. The best salespeople, right, are selling themselves.
Right.
And that's really hard to do with an emoji and a fire emoji, right? It's just in a THC percentage. So what we do is we have 75 retailers in the state that are signed up. as a brand, you get to see 25 of them a month for 3 months. It's a 90-day program. And rather than forcing you into launching with our big expensive platform, right? We allow you to come in for a 90-day run to make sure that your proof of concept is there. Now we're going to get you orders, but we're going to bring you into the store, right? We're going to allow you, Kevin, if you come into the store and you're able to sell your product and your brand is resonating and your supply chain is there to follow up and your price point is on point, right? Now you got something. It makes us make less mistakes because now we see you execute and we'll bring you into the mothership. And I mean, I'll tell you that only three brands of 25 that have gone through the program in the last 9 months. Yeah, 9 months. Only 3 of them have we moved into the big boy program, because the rest of them, they all love the program. They're, it's not like they're mad at us, but what they've realized that there's something missing. I got to go back and revamp my price point. I got to go back and change my flower pre-roll to infused rosin pre-roll. I got to go and figure out why I just built this massive grow when my price point is underwater. My branding is not there. So this is the true incubator that allows you to get everything dialed before you move into the big mothership. And I had plenty of people that go, you know what? I thought my thesis was right and it actually wasn't. And you just saved me $1 million.
Right. It's so important to have that, that back end work and that foundation set before you jump into this industry that is so highly regulated and is ever evolving, right? I mean, these regulations are changing by the day, and especially like you mentioned earlier with Gavin Newsom trying to reform what's happening in California. So yeah, I would imagine having that help is crucial.
Oh, it's essential because this space is hard. And what the normal person that comes in from alcohol beverage, or they come in from food and beverage, they're like, dude, I've been in CPG forever, right? We have all been humbled in cannabis. This is really hard, right? You better be ready to get kicked in the teeth, and you better be ready to change and pivot and be humbled and understand that, yeah, a lot of your training, a lot of your principles will apply, but not all of them, right? And there's a lot of nuances with cannabis, and can you wear a suit in some meetings, and can you like be prepared to roll up a blunt in another meeting? It's an interesting space. It's so fun. And the reason why I love it so much is like, there's nobody in front of us. There's no Budweiser.
Right.
There's no behemoth. Like, if you want to be that, and there will be companies that become that, if you want to be that, you can do that. And for me, that's the fire that kind of drives me to be in the space and continue to execute. And I'll tell you that I mentioned I've made a lot of mistakes. Like, the one thing I took for granted forever as an entrepreneur is when people tell you it's all about the people. Oh, it's about culture. When you're young, you're like, what are you even talking about? Just get that deal done and sell the product, right? And until you make mistakes with culture, until you don't hire properly, until you truly understand what it means to invest in people, I don't think you can be a great business person. And I've been through some good things and some bad things, but I'll tell you that the group of people that we have here at Petalfast have all said, I've come from a cannabis disaster, and now I'm coming to a business model that I believe in. And they have all come together to really build Petalfast. And that's probably the thing I'm most proud of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've really put company culture and just making sure that who you're hiring, they're a good fit for the org, right? I'm so excited. I'm passionate the fact that cannabis has the opportunity to really transform the way existing industries operate and how they do things. And you talk about the opportunity of any player eventually becoming that big behemoth like Budweiser. Yeah, that's totally true. And there's a lot of opportunity for companies to just do things differently and do it the way that we've always envisioned it to be the right way. So, yeah, go ahead. You want to respond to that?
No, I think I've been able to be around so many different companies. I mean, I told you, Pete Cadens and Anthony from GTI. When you walk into GTI's office, there is a certain like buzz about it. It's just people there are buzzing around and happy to be there, and they're excited about being there, and they're excited about a vision, and there's one team, one goal, and everybody is aligned, right? And that's when I knew. That's when I was like, like it doesn't feel this way at other places I've been into. And creating that culture, like you have to really be committed to it.
Gonna
Right? It's
work
not,
at it.
not
Yeah.
hard. You got to work at it. The other thing that I will tell you, creating that culture, is your investors. And in cannabis, there are so many promises that are made that as an operator, you can't make without knowing you have an investor group behind you, right? And I always bring up Merida Capital. Merida Capital is our lead investor. They were my investors in my other company. These guys back you when things are great, and that's when everybody backs you, right?
Mhm.
But I've also been through a lot of challenging times where they didn't look at me like I was an idiot. They backed me just as hard because they believe in their company. So knowing and having the right investors around your company also allows you um, to build culture, because you can make promises and know that you are going to have a group of people behind you that are going to back you through thick and thin.
Absolutely. Very well said, Jason. I mean, as we wrap up, man, I want to leave you the floor. I know we've touched on a lot of different topics, but if there's anything that's top of mind that you want to leave the audience with, I mean, now's the time to do it.
I think it's about everybody asks me like from how do I invest in cannabis? Where do you look, right? And there's really two ways. There's public companies, and right now is a great time. I mean, everybody is beaten down, right? Right now is a great time to
Mhm.
get involved in cannabis, because of the fact that there's just um, discounts all over the place. Um,
Absolutely.
and it's just it's a great time. And then there's private companies and there's entrepreneurs, right? And I think there's an opportunity right now to be a part of and shape the entire industry. So investing in cannabis is there's a lot of horror stories out there, but a lot of the early challenges, a lot of the early businesses, they got started when they shouldn't have gotten started. Right now is a great time to get into the space. Economic downturn is going to be all over the place. I can assure you that the cannabis industry is going to grow over the next 5 years, like
Mhm.
guaranteed 100% going to grow over the
I
next 5 years.
agree.
Name
Yep.
another industry that you're going to see guaranteed without a doubt grow over the next 5 years. There
Right.
is none.
And we saw it during the pandemic. I mean, we saw when people were economically at their low, they're stressed, they turned to cannabis. And we saw that in different states where even the taxation rates almost compared or superseded alcohol.
Yeah, and that's partially because the taxes are way higher, um, and that's partially because there's a lot of cannabis being smoked or consumed. But I would not shy away from this space. I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
great operators. There is growth coming, right? Legalization is going to happen. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. So we got catalysts all over the place, and I'll tell you that one of the things that hampers the growth of cannabis companies is just not enough money in the space. We don't have institutional investors.
Right.
We've got some family offices, we got some venture capital, we got some strategics, but we need people to learn about cannabis, get involved in cannabis, and help the entrepreneurs grow their businesses, because there's a lot of great ones out there. But when you're raising money for food or an alcohol, there is 100x more capital available if you have the right idea. In cannabis, there's like 10 firms, and we all know the same 10 firms. So we need more folks to look at the space and be able to help these entrepreneurs get things moving.
Couldn't agree more. And conversations like this will definitely help, move the needle and really start to inform people as to what's happening in this industry. So, Jason, really appreciate your insights, man. It's always great to talk to a former Bucknell alum like myself. And Love to have you back on, man, as things continue to develop and grow in the industry, and as Petalfast continues to expand and grow outside of California eventually.
I appreciate it, man. Bucknell Bison in the cannabis industry. You know, I meet new ones all the time, and we're going to try to get some interns from Bucknell. Some of the basketball players are reaching out to me and like, hey man, how do I get into this thing? But we want to help as much as we can. I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, definitely come on again.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find y'all's website and social media if they want to learn more?
Petalfast, we are hiring. So anybody looking for jobs, we are hiring, we are expanding. You can check us out at petalfast.com, our website. You can check us out on LinkedIn. We do most of our job postings on Indeed. So we're expanding, we're growing. And yeah, pretty much everything from investors to jobs to just understanding if you're a brand, what services we offer. You can find that.
Awesome. I'll be sure to include those links in the description box for YouTube. Thanks again, Jason. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening. Bye.